And what's going on, everybody? We're back here after a little hiatus there. We are Family Pittsburgh Sports Podcast episode. What episode is it?
We always
Is it
say this, we don't know.
We
Yeah,
always
I know.
say
Is
it
it
like
37
36,
one
maybe?
36, 37.
I
Either
think.
way, either way, it's an episode. This is an episode of We Are Family, and joined by Jake Bell and Pirate Payton as always. Pirate Payton back after our last episode was just me and Jake. He had to deal with some things going on, but I wanna. There's a lot to get
I had a lot
into.
to going on.
A lot going on. We always have a lot going on. Some things happen, but we got a lot to talk about. Even though for the Pirates it's kind of same old, same old. They are, as we speak, 16 games under 500, going nowhere this season. The offense continues to look horrid, and now Brian Reynolds is on the paternity list, and he's continued to struggle. So I guess we're gonna start with what the outlook of this team is because, like I said, they're not going anywhere this season other than the basement of the NL Central, and their offense struggled so much. They have some trade pieces, right? The obvious guys that are contracts are up at the end of the season, like Andrew Heaney, like Isaiah Kiner Falefa, and there are some interesting also mostly pitchers that the Pirates may look to trade, like a Mitch Keller or even a Bailey Fault or somebody like that, to try to get just any major league hitting. So, Jake, I want to start with you because you brought this up. It's a great thing to talk about in this episode. What direction the Pirates should go at the trade deadline, which is still over a month away, but nothing's going to change, obviously, with the team. What direction do you think they should go? Obviously, they're going to trade some of these rental guys. We know that, but do they get even more aggressive and trade, like I mentioned, a Mitch Keller or a David Bednar or somebody like that to net? Hopefully, I mean, if Sherrington was smart, it would be for some major league bats who are already proven in some capacity. But what do you think? Do you agree with that? Do you think the Pirates should be kind of aggressive in trading maybe some of these pitchers who are at or near kind of the end of their deals and maybe get some young, more established hitters in return?
Yeah, so I think the Pirates, what they should do is kind of buy and sell at the same time, almost to a degree. Like, obviously, you see 16 games under 500, you're thinking you have to sell, go for prospects, but at the same time, you also have a roster that, if you do the right things, could be competitive pretty soon, right? This isn't going to warrant a large rebuild going on. At least I don't think, right? So I would definitely look at obviously you got to trade Heaney and IKF, right? They have expiring deals. There's at least some guys that could take over their spot in the minor league level where you don't feel like you need to extend either of them. So that would make sense to me. I think I love Mitch Keller. He's a fine pitcher. He's been doing well more than not this whole entire season. But I think he's someone you consider trading for a bat. It's just you have so much talent in the starting pitching. It also gives you room to call up Bubba Chandler, to call up Hunter Barco, give these guys a chance at the MLB level because they have, in my opinion, the higher ceiling. I think we already know what Keller's ceiling is, and that's a good quality starting pitcher. I don't think he's ever going to kind of fully get any better than that unless we trade him and he does that with another team potentially. But I think he's someone you consider trading. And a couple guys that I know have a shot at being traded are Dennis Santana and David Bednar. And I go back and forth with this because one, yeah, they're both like Santana's having the best season of his career, like by far, and Bednar, like he's been pitching very well since he's been called back up. But at the same time, if you trade them, are you going to get another reliever eventually back that's going to be at all close to what they've been able to do for you? And I just don't know, and I don't know, like it's going to cost more for that type of pitcher than it would to keep Bednar and Santana anyway. So that's something that they might have to make a decision about. But I don't know, like you trade Bednar and Santana, who also are going to be here next year. You're just losing an element, assuming Bednar is back, right? If Bednar is kind of what he was last year, you got it like, or if he eventually goes to what he was last year, next year, you have to trade him for the most value that he has. But that's an interesting, thing thing to keep your eye on. But I think they should buy and sell. Like, trade some of these guys with expiring deals, trade Mitch Keller, and try to get some major league bats if you can. I remember in 2018, we all know the Archer trade happened with the Rays, but I'm not talking about that. I'm kind of talking about whenever they acquired Tommy Pham that same trade deadline. It was like, whoa, like they're trading all these guys and then they acquire Tommy Pham. That ended up working out pretty well for them. He helped them make a World Series, if I'm not mistaken. So, or at least in 2019 they did very well. I don't know if they didn't make the World Series that year, but still he helped them be very competitive the year after in the season what looked to be lost, even though they did win 90 wins that year. But yeah, I think it's interesting to see. I think they should buy and sell. That's my opinion. So.
Yeah, well, it's too bad Tommy Pham for $4 million at age 37 can't help the Pirates at all. I mean, way worse than we even thought. His OPS is now back to being under 500. I don't even know if it was, but I assume it was. He's like 0 for his last 13 at-bats here. But yeah, I agree with you, Jake. It's a buy-sell. It has to be a buy-sell approach. The selling when it comes to the pitching, right? You can't, to me, people are talking about selling, like, trading Bart or Reynolds. Like, those are the only guys that, in the last 2 years, have, now Bart's been hurt a lot, and Reynolds just has been bad this year. But, overall, Bart and Reynolds are the guys that are helping your offense. So you can't trade those guys if you're looking to win next year. But in terms of selling pitching, yeah, you have room to do that. Now, I want to say, before I get into, some of this, the overarching issue, though, is that Ben Cherington is conducting all of this. So I'm not saying that Ben Cherington should be making a ton of moves, because I don't trust him to make trades, to make the right moves for this team to win in the near future. So with that being said, I'm going to get into this. Assuming that we live in a perfect world and that Ben Cherington isn't the GM. But obviously that's not the case. So he's probably going to be given room to make moves, and we're just going to have to hope for the best. As far as the starting pitching goes, yeah, I think like you don't want to deal everyone, because injuries happen with starting pitching, and you don't want to be like, holy crap, I don't know, what are we going to do now? Bailey Falter, I'm not sure how many years he has left, but he's a good guy. I would be okay with keeping him around as a 4th, 5th starter. Now Mitch Keller, I think, makes a lot of sense, because if you're Ben Cherington, you're looking for the greatest value possible with whatever trades you make. And what I mean by that is getting bats that are major league ready, whether that's they're playing in the major leagues right now, or they're damn near ready to come up next year. Not in 2027, not even in the second half of 2026. I'm talking about right now into 2026. Because you have no time to wait any longer. Because your job should be on the line. So Mitch Keller, right, I feel like you said, Jake, I think he's a quality 3 starter. I don't know if you can consider him elite. And that's okay. He's worked out for the Pirates well. I'm not, that's fine. But Bob Nutting gave him, they got a massive contract. He got a massive, for the Pirates anyway, that was a big contract. And if the Pirates want to spend, not only do they want to get value back from him, they need to clear room to get offense. Clear cap space to get offense. And Mitch Keller has a pretty decent, he's getting $15-20 million a year or whatever it is. So they need to get rid of that. I think there'd be teams that they would get decent value back for him and be able to put that money into free agency next year. I think that's a move that I wouldn't be surprised if they made. Maybe not at the trade deadline, but at least by next offseason. And then when you look at the bullpen, I feel like Bednar, you can't get rid of both Bednar and Santana, because you got to have somebody that you can build around. Because this bullpen, we've talked about this, it needs retooled. It needs, it's not what it was in 2023. It's just not anymore. And you need to figure out what these pitchers in your system, whether they're going to be starters or relievers, you need to start figuring that out now and start adding more young pitchers to that pen, like what they did with Colin Holderman when they traded Daniel Vogelbach. So they should be looking for younger relievers who are on the rise, but under the radar at the same time. But you do need one guy to build around. So I think whoever you think is going to be good for the next going into 2026 and beyond, I think you keep, and the other you get rid of at the highest value. Now I think Santana right now has higher value than David Bednar, and you have to remember that Santana is a free agent after next season, where Bednar, I believe, has 2 more years left. Am I correct on that?
I think he might be a free agent the same time as Santana. I could be wrong about that.
All right, well, we'll look that up.
He made his debut in 2020, I want to say, Bednar. Or 2019, 2020, so.
We'll look that up. But, yeah, I think one of those guys should go, because I do think there are so many teams desperate for help in their bullpen that are competing. Honestly, though, like, I think you might get more value for Santana, unless the longevity. Well, I got to check out Bednar's contract, but Bednar I trust less than Santana, I think, and that's crazy to say. But Bednar's weight has always been an issue. He's had injury history. He's been inconsistent. Like, I want to buy into that the elite David Bednar is going to be back for the long term. But if you can get a high value for him, like, I feel like they turned that down in the past, where teams were going to give up a lot of good stuff for David Bednar, and I don't feel like they can turn that down again, based on some of the issues we've seen with David Bednar in the past. So that, to me, has to be the strategy with those pitchers. I'm not trading any of your valuable offensive pieces, because you just can't afford to lose offense. You have to get offense to be competitive next year. The only guy I'm considering trading is Ke'Bryan Hayes, because, well, obviously there's guys who are on 1-year deals who you could let go of, probably, like IKF, Adam Frazier. But I'm talking about guys like Bart and Reynolds. Like, you can't let go of those guys, because those guys can be valuable to your offense. But I'm not even going to project that they're not going to do that, though. So, and that would be really disappointing. But I think Ke'Bryan Hayes, obviously, he can't hit. Not only can he not hit, but you have to remember, right, the big concern was, well, can he stay healthy? Well, he's been healthy this year, and he's been terrible. So, you have to get, it's a kind of similar situation with Keller, except, obviously, Keller is a good pitcher, and Ke'Bryan Hayes is not a good hitter. You got to get rid of that cap as much as you can. They're obviously not going to get a lot back for Ke'Bryan Hayes, but honestly, just get rid of him for a loaf of bread so we can have that money to spend in free agency on offense next year. I think if you do that with Keller and Hayes, that'll give the Pirates more flexibility. As much as I hate talking about that, but it's the truth. It's the hand we're dealt to spend on the offense. So,
yeah, a lot to unpack there. Yeah, I largely agree with what both of you said. Starting with Mitch Keller, I think a little, start the season and even a couple of weeks ago, I was a little more hesitant to be willing to trade him, just because, he's done so much for this franchise, and he's really turned it around. He signed that long-term deal not even that long ago still. And he's provided so much value and stability for this rotation when there was no stability, around him. That being said, with this pitching, we have so much pitching. We've detailed it. Everybody knows it. That is the obvious strength of this farm system, is the pitching. And so Keller, as a righty, also is a little bit more expendable when you realize you got Skeens, you got Jones coming back, hopefully, near the start of next season. Bubba Chandler, obviously, and one of these Mike Burrows or Braxton Ashcraft could be, a permanent starter or whatever, who knows. So you have a lot of righty options, whereas a Bailey Falter, as a lefty, is very valuable And also, I mean, he's just been pitching a little bit better than Mitch Keller, a little bit more consistently, I think, as well. That's not to take anything away from Mitch Keller. I think Mitch Keller is consistent in the fact that he's very average, and you take that with pitching, 10 out of 10 times. But you
I
just got to
think
be
Mitch
honest.
Keller, the long term, is the better pitcher than Bailey Falter.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I would agree
if
because
the
he can
difference
strike out a
is
little. Yeah, go
the
ahead.
difference is the contract. I said the
Right.
difference is the
Yeah,
contract.
yeah, that's what it is. And so I think there would be a lot of suitors, and I think if you're Ben Cherington, there's a chance he doesn't have this in his mind because he has very little correct going on in his mind. But you have to be looking at these hitters that are at least semi proven at the major league level. I think everybody's done with these prospects we're getting back. I mean, we just got back Nick York and everything. We don't even want to bring him up to the major leagues. And Billy Cook we just brought up, and he'll be gone in several days. And they haven't really performed up to what they should be if they're major league hitters in AAA. So I think we've seen time and time again. I mean, there's you can count on one hand how many hitters Charrington's acquired that are actually major league and are still at the major league level with the Pirates. It's Bart and I mean, who else? I mean, really. So um, I think getting actual hitters that are at the major league level from a team that we've thought for a while now the Orioles are kind of that perfect suitor where it's like they need pitching, they have a lot of hitting, we have a lot of pitching, we have no hitting, where you can make a maybe deal. I do think the Orioles are in kind of a similar situation this season. I don't think they get back into the fold, although I could see it much more likely than the Pirates, obviously. But they play in the American League where the wild card team might win 83, 84 games. But I think they're in a similar situation where I think they're going to do some buying and selling as well. I think anybody on expiring contracts for them might get traded, and whoever else would, try to get, some pitching back because they just have no pitching other than Grayson Rodriguez. But I think now maybe that has waned a little bit. You just got to look for some teams that need some pitching, and I do think Rich Keller, if the right deal is available for some hitting players, some players that have performed at least a little bit at the major league level. Particularly, I mean, Pirates are going to need a third baseman. I mean, this is ridiculous here with Ke'Bryan Hayes. You thought, oh, he's as healthy as he's been in several years now. I thought this. I'll be the first to admit, I thought he was going to have a semi bounce back season because he's healthy for the first time. He's not fully healthy, but as healthy as he's been in several years. And we saw what he did just 2 years ago in the second half when he was hitting, hit a dozen homers and was hitting for extra bases, gap to gap. And he's just not that player. He's just exactly the same, maybe even worse than he was last season. He's not hitting at all. He's putting the ball in play less. He's striking out more, and he's hitting it weakly on the ground, like we've seen, and we thought he could be better. It's just not happening, and his defense hasn't even been as good as it's been. Now it's still really good. He's still leading in a lot of metrics, but it's not like in terms of WAR what he's provided, and so I think he becomes very expendable, especially with the value that I think he does have for some teams that can't get it right defensively. He's arguably the best defensive third baseman in baseball, so that's the attraction there. But the issue is he can't hit, and so he's nothing more really than for a really good team trying to go deep in the playoffs. He's nothing more than a player that you defensive sub in for, in late innings and who you pinch hit for, or maybe play against lefties sometimes. I don't know. So, like you mentioned, Payton, there's really no value there, especially with his contract as well. So it will be interesting to see what Charrington or anybody could fetch there. As for the reliever situation, I still think Bednar has more value than Santana. Um, I know Santana's pitched better. I think teams, when it gets to October, teams more than anything out of relievers, what do they like most? They like the ability to strike guys out. And Bednar has,
Yeah.
I mean, this more than I mean, he's looked excellent. I mean, he's just been you look at his last 12 games, he's given up like 1 or 2 runs. He's been actually striking out a bunch of guys. This is the guy we saw and who was an all-star for this team. I do think if there's a team that really wants to go for it and wants to overpay for Bednar, I think you gotta trade him away. But you gotta keep one of them. I agree with you. You gotta keep one of Santana or Bednar because you do need when you bring up some of these young guys to put in your bullpen, you do need some stability there and some guys who can just get some outs late in games. And I
And
think
I
that's
think they should be looking for young relievers during the trade deadline that are coming up, similar to like what
yeah
they did with Colin Holderman years back,
yeah I
as
think
well.
I think yeah, absolutely. I do think that's a way to go because look, it's not just this offense that is forward right now. This at times this bullpen can look awful. I mean, sometimes recently we've seen it when they were playing a little better. It was dominant. It gave up no runs, but there's some times where you don't fully trust some of these guys. So um, I agree. Obviously, so, interesting to see what you could get for Bednar, but also somebody like Caleb Ferguson, who's at the end of obviously it's a 1 year deal. Wonder what he would attract. I would assume not much. I would
Mm,
assume just kind of a
yeah,
low
not
level
much.
prospect. But sometimes when it gets late on the deadline, teams want to overpay. This is a trade deadline where if the Pirates don't trade a couple random veterans, I wouldn't be, angered by it because it's just like, what are you going to get in the end? And Charrington doesn't know hitters at all. Really, we've seen that. It's unfortunate, but we've seen that. And so it goes back to what you said. The overarching thing here is that the general manager who has fielded this worst in baseball offense in year 6 is still the general manager, believe it or not, and so he's going to most likely preside over this trade deadline. So I just don't know what they're going to get back, if they're going to get anything good back, especially hitter wise. It's obviously the biggest thing. Are they going to get hitters back in return that could contribute to the next winning team in Pittsburgh with the Pirates? So that'll be the big question there.
I think you talked about it with, for example, Ferguson. But I think this goes in general. You have to be patient. Don't just trade guys just to trade guys. You have to be in a mode that you're not trying to just gather prospects at this point. You're not. You have to be patient. If they don't give you a good enough return for a Dennis Santana or a David Bednar, don't do it. Don't do it. Now I think so. I did look it up. You're correct, Jake Bell. Bednar and Santana are both free agents after next year. So obviously, so that keeps them more even as to who's more valuable. Nate, you may be right. Bednar may be because obviously Bednar has he has the better strikeout rate, right? The more
And
nasty
you have to
stuff,
remember, Santana was a
and
waiver
he has the
claim last
two-time
year.
All-Star
So,
pedigree.
yeah.
What's that?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say Santana was also a waiver
Yeah.
claim a year ago. You know what I mean? So, like, people could say, hey, is
Right.
this sustainable? Who knows? So,
Yeah, but and the devil's advocate to that is Bednar's been more inconsistent over the last 2 years. We have the injury history. His weight has kind of been an issue. At least from the outside, that's what it seems like to me. I think that may have caused some of his back injuries, which is never, you don't want to hear. We have PTSD when it comes to back injuries. Not going to mention any names, but yeah. So, but yeah, Key Brian Hayes. It's excruciating watching this guy hit. It's just excruciating every single day. It is just out of everyone. It's like I just can't take it anymore. Like it's just like you just there's nothing you can do with this guy. There's just nothing. It seems like it's so hopeless. So it's like you just got to take the L and get rid of him and clear some money. So, and there's plenty of high market teams where his contract is nothing to take on really, and it's a low risk thing. So, but it's a different situation for the Pirates, obviously.
Yeah, it's kind of funny with Hayes. Like, if you would see like how his career has been up to this point, like 2023 would have been the time to trade him. But if the Pirates did that, there would have been a riot. Like that, we all three of us would have been very mad. Obviously, and we didn't even know each
Oh
other
yeah.
whenever Hayes had that really good year. But all three of us would still be very mad.
Well,
Like
really
obviously, that's
though,
not something you do.
he had 2 good months though.
Yeah,
That's what got it, 2 or 3 good months, because he started out slow that year. He has had three, well, plus the 2020 season, but that's a Mickey Mouse kind of thing. He's had 2 or 3 months of production in the major leagues in a 5-6 year career now. So I think at what point you can't just say, well, we're gonna wait a little longer on this. You just can't say, oh, we're gonna build around this guy. You just can't. You can't do it anymore. The glove is not worth it.
right. And I kind of want to mention like about like acquiring hitters, especially if even though they're going to deal guys like IKF, potentially like Hayes. I don't think the Pirates should shy away from guys that are available that are under contract this year and next year. Like think of it as, signing a
Yes.
1 year free agent going into 2026 without having to bid other teams via money. Instead, you're bidding with them with prospects. I don't think the Pirates should shy away from that. If they're looking to compete more on a higher level in 2026 than they are right now, I mean, it's basically the same thing. But if you go after these guys, they're going to be more high profile than what the Pirates are going to be able to get in free agency anyway. If you trade for a guy that is controllable through 2026, and even if not beyond, that's fine. I wouldn't put that as your whole focus, because assuming Bednar and Santana are not going to be on the team after 2026, you're losing those two guys. Then you're losing a few hitters. I mean, it's almost like you have to start over in a way. But like, I wouldn't shy away from it. I would be happy with that. Get guys that are controllable at least through 2026. Trade guys that are half a year gone, and like assuming Frazier and IKF are going to be gone, like I'd expect the Pirates to start York every day. Maybe even kind of look into the possibility of Gonzalez playing shortstop, because if Termar Johnson is going to be getting called up eventually, I don't think he's going to be a better shortstop than what Gonzalez can be. At least that's what, in my opinion. I feel like Gonzalez has more positional flexibility there. But I'd also like to see Nick York play. Like if you trade IKF, you move Gonzalez to short, you could see Nick York at second base, and I think that you have nothing to lose after the trade deadline if you don't add another middle infielder, or you trade Hayes, whatever the case may be. Then you can do,
And
other.
IKF, he's lived up to his contract. Like we were like 7.5 million's a lot for him, but from an offensive standpoint, he's done a very decent job, for his standards. But you're not going to pay that extra 4 or 5. You're going to get what you can back for him, and to give guys like Nick York an opportunity, and that's really the one guy who's close to the big leagues that I'm interested in seeing. Other than that, I really can't think of anybody else
Alika
that I
Williams.
find interesting. What'd you say?
Alika Williams.
Oh, he's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very what a prospect
But
there.
honestly, like I'm interested to see what IKF can get in the trade deadline, because to my knowledge, there's not many guys that can play shortstop that are available at the trade deadline. At least not to my knowledge. I could be wrong about that, but at least on the infield side of things, on the left side of the
Well,
infield.
an IKF could play in multiple positions too.
Exactly. Not only that, but he's very good situationally. You need someone like that on a playoff team that is willing to sacrifice bunt, who is willing to ground out the other way on a runner at second, 0 outs, to get yourself a runner on third with 1 out, so you can drive him in pretty much any way you want. I mean, he's a guy that's not willing to risk his batting average for an at-bat to help the greater good of the team. I mean, in the MLB today, you don't see that much. Like, all these guys, like, they'll see a shift where there is a wide open hole on the third base side, and they're still trying to pull the ball with every intention to do so, because they feel like the 0.1% chance of them hitting a home run is more likely to happen than them going the opposite way and getting hit. So,
And
I mean,
that drives
I
both
see
of
a good
us
situation.
nuts.
I know it. Like people wonder why hitters don't hit 300 anymore, and that's exactly why. They're not willing to be selfless for a second to greater that. I mean, IKF, he's seeing the best pitchers, like at least stuff wise, that the MLB has probably ever seen, like in terms of pitch movement and velocity, and he's still batting in the 280s while being a very selfless player. Like, I think people don't realize how valuable that is. So I'm interested to see what he can command. I hope it's more than Charles McAdoo, what the Pirates gave up. I know at the time that was probably a lot to give up, but he hasn't really lived up to what he's been with the Pirates previously. So I'm kind of curious to see what IKF is going to command. I would imagine they have to trade him. So
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get much because IKF, when we got him last year, had 7 homers. I don't
That's
think
true.
he's going to have, he only has 1. But you could argue he's getting on base, probably getting on base for it and getting hits. He's like averaging like a hit per game. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but he was at one point. But yeah, I just don't think it's going to be tough getting value back for him. But I think there's just no sense in him playing shortstop every day for the Pirates anymore. So, because you're not competing for anything. So you got to get something back. Like there's going to be some trades where it's like kind of pointless. Like what the Pirates get in return is nothing. Really is nothing like for next year, but that's the goal. The goal is to make trades that does get stuff back for next year, and you have to be patient and wait that out. And get the best value possible. I mean, that's always the goal. So
Yeah, yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, you love to get a kind of solid reliever in return for IKF. I don't think that would happen because teams don't deal relievers at the trade deadline they're trying to buy. You can never have enough
well,
relief
a young
pitchers.
pitcher who could be a reliever, like I mean, we got Colin Holderman for Daniel Vogelbach,
Right,
so
right.
things can't happen. That
Well,
might be a
I
good
mean,
route for Sherrington to go.
yeah, I agree with that. If that would be, something that was available, I think you absolutely would go with that. But I just think I agree with you, Peyton. I think not just trading guys just because they're on expiring deals, we have to trade them. You got to get value back. You have to, and not middling prospects who would be ranked number 28 in your farm system. It needs to be surefire guys. And maybe that's asking too much, but I mean that's completely fair when you're in year 6 and we're done with just getting prospects that are going to maybe make the major leagues in 3 or 4 seasons. So it'll be interesting to see what they do because we assume Sharon is going to be general manager at that point still, which the draft's coming up in less than a month as well. Will be interesting to see what the Pirates do there. I wonder if they'll get a college bat or a college arm or something. Hopefully, it would be a bat and rush him up to the major leagues like the Angels do every season. Um, but anyway, that's where we are with the Pirates. As of now, too, they're just getting destroyed by Tarek Skubal and the Tigers. They're just outclassed. They're just outclassed, and offensively, they are a nightmare right now. So, anything else you guys want to add on them?
Yeah, I do. I think there's good. Like I said before, there are some trades that are kind of like you have to trade IKF. Like you're not gonna just let him sit there for nothing when he's gonna be gone next year. And so the Pirates lose leverage with that. They're not gonna get like a guy who's gonna be a high end bat who's gonna be ready to go, or even a high end arm that's gonna be ready to go. But I'd rather get a prospect who's a reliever, who could be a reliever on the rise and could be here by next year, or you could trial him in August and September, than a minor league bat that's not going to be here for 2 or 3 years or 4 years. Like, because pitchers in the Pirate system tend to have more success than hitters. So, and when you're trying to retool your bullpen, I think that's for trades with guys like IKF and Frazier. That's what you're kind of looking for. Probably is a reliever who could be on the rise pretty soon.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that at all, especially given you look at some of these guys, aside from Bednar and Santana, we'll see what their future is. You look at, I think Braxton Ashcroft will be a fantastic reliever for the team. I kind of hope he doesn't go into the rotation because I think guys like Bubba Chandler, Hunter Barco, and Mike Burrows, I think they all profile better as a starting pitcher. But I think Ashcroft will be a fantastic relief pitcher. I still have a lot of hope for Carmen Mlodzinski. I think he belongs in the bullpen. I know he got blown
I mean,
up
he's just
in his
been
last game.
thrown around like a rag doll.
Exactly.
And that's
I
partly
don't
his
think
fault, though. But
right. Yeah, but I think he's still a fantastic reliever when he's at his peak. I think with the Pirates pitching depth, I think they have a lot of options. Not to mention the pick guy, Isaac Matson. I know we'll see if his performance is sustainable or not, but he's been unreal. Like for a guy that is just a random pickup in a way. So I'm curious to see how this bullpen kind of unfolds. But I feel like with the young pitching depth that the Pirates have, it could be a good one. And if they trade IKF for a guy like Holderman at the time, where he's going to come in, be an impact reliever right off the bat, assuming the Pirates can continue to develop these bullpen guys, I would be very happy with that. And trading guys with the year control, like, I think the Pirates should be more willing to do so with the offense, because one, offense has been down a lot for most teams in the MLB. I feel like Adam Frazier's not going to get you much, but at least, that can open the door for a guy like Nick York, because I feel like it's more valuable to see what he can do post-trade deadline than keeping Frazier in the lineup. As much as Frazier is probably the better player right now, which is actually kind of crazy to say, but I mean, he's been performing at a solid MLB hitter for this team. But I still don't feel like, if you're still 16 games under, like, having him start almost every day post trade deadline, I don't think that's gonna matter too much. I think you have to see what you have offensively. I think it's more likely that Frazier is gone than a Caleb Ferguson, like you guys mentioned, or I know Tim Mays is out for the year, or at least he's most likely going to be out for the year, but like a guy like him too, if he was healthy, it would make more sense for him to stay on the team than Frazier and IKFs.
Well, and historically too, I mean, the Pirates, guys who are on expiring contracts, they're good, and who are average and aren't going to be back next year, like, they're going to trade him. They're going to trade him for something. It's just like how you go about it and what you get in return in terms of value, and how you prepare to do that. So.
Yeah, it would be more likely in 2021 that everyone in the expiring deal is going to get traded no matter what, because you have to lose adding another prospect on a rebuilding team. But like now you just have to get more value back than to trade someone just to trade someone at this point. So
100%.
Will be interesting, because if you do look at this bullpen, say you trade one of Bednar and Santana, you still have one of them. You have Matson, which you mentioned, Jake. I mean, how much of this is real? I mean, if he keeps it up like this, and it looks sustainable almost. I mean, his fastball is more than I thought it did. I don't know if he changed something with his mechanics, but I don't remember.
These guys are both different. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe, but so you have one of those guys. You got Matson. You have Chase Shugart, who has performed really solid. I mean, opponents are hitting under 200 against him this season. You have Moreta coming up soon, hopefully. He was just activated a week ago or so. You figure he's going to pitch pretty well. And you mentioned Ashcraft, you mentioned Majinski. Nicholas has to perform better at some point. So there's still a lot of guys where it's not necessarily mandatory if it's not there to get a reliever, or to force it with a reliever who's young but maybe you're not really high on. I do think for sure getting return on a hitter of some kind is the number one priority at this trade deadline. But it's just like, who are you going to trade that's going to fetch?
Not double A guys though, in single A. That's my thing.
Not a prospect. Not a prospect. Yeah.
Other than maybe Heaney, that might be the case, but I don't know. So.
Yeah, I mean, well, if they trade Mitch,
well,
Keller,
that we probably will. It's probably unavoidable. Like, I'm okay with getting guys hitting prospects who are years away, as long as you get guys that are ready now.
Yeah.
Or some major league guys. Like, that's,
The only way that happens is if you trade Keller or Bednar, I think, because any rental is not going to fetch you that, I don't think. I don't think Heaney would even fetch you that, especially if he just had a bad start here. If that kind of snowballs, hopefully not, but or even an IKF, even though he could play a lot of positions, he's still a rental who is a 700 OPS guy. And
that's why we talk about relievers with those, getting relievers in return for those guys, more so than that's the main reason is the returns just not going to be strong enough.
Right. So it's going to be interesting what the Pirates do. I want to talk a little bit. We didn't talk about this about planning. I want to talk about just some MLB takeaways. We haven't talked about the league as a whole.
Oh yeah, that's very true.
I just want to talk about some takeaways that you guys have of what we've seen so far. Obviously, Detroit Tigers looking like the class of the American League, but there's Houston Astros have been playing better. The Yankees and the Mets in New York have been kind of scuffling. we have this Dodgers-Padres series that has been really tight. The Dodgers have won every game so far, but it's been really tight and competitive, and there's been some drama, some throwing at guys. And we have teams that are interesting at the trade deadline, like Arizona, like Texas, two teams who were in the World Series just 2 years ago who could go either way if the season and if the month before the trade deadline doesn't work out for them. So just what do you guys kind of what's your main takeaways here as we're looking so far, just of a team or a race or something that looks kind of significant at this point?
One big one I have, like you mentioned with the Diamondbacks, is the National League West. I mean, obviously, we know the Dodgers are very good. Giants, I had them at around 83 wins. I thought they would be third in the division. They not only are they, they're 10 games over 500, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or something like that. And
Yeah,
now
it's
they
eight
got
or
Devers,
nine.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They got Devers.
They're struggling against the Guardians, so they've fallen back a little, but they're
still legit.
Well, yeah.
Playoff contenders. So that's going to be interesting. I know they gave up, Kyle Harrison, but like, even though he was like a top prospect for a while, but that's something you have to do. You have to get a big bopper. While there's a lot of teams that have struggling offensive players this season, so I think the Giants are going to be interesting. Obviously, Padres are going to keep hanging in there. Xander Bogaerts, it kind of shows you that like all these big time prospects or big time contracts you give out to these guys, it's just hit or miss. It's very hit or miss. You have to get guys that aren't trying to play for a bag, who are trying to do more than that, and it just doesn't seem like, because I doubt Bogarts just forgot to hit at the age of 32. Like, I really doubt that's the case. I feel like there's just a motivational aspect. Like, if you're you're guaranteed over $200 million. I mean, your persona is going to change a certain way, because you don't have to really do much and you're going to get all this money. So I think that division is going to be interesting. So yeah, that's one of my biggest takeaways. I did not think that would be as competitive of a division as it actually is. So,
well, I have to disagree in that I think the Dodgers still are going to run away with this thing. They just are too much.
I think they will, but it's at least competitive.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it has been more competitive for sure. I mean, the Dodgers haven't set the world on fire, but they have won 5 in a row. And the Giants, Padres, and Diamondbacks have all kind of scuffled the last kind of week here. So the Dodgers just have too much in general, in terms of offense especially. They could just outslug you. Doesn't matter how many pitchers they have hurt. And in terms of a long regular season, they're just going to... But look, the Giants in that division for a couple years now, they've been okay. And they've been off to a really good start this year. But no one's really paid attention to the Giants because they've been around a 500 team. In that division, the Padres are considered better. And the last few years, the Diamondbacks have been considered to have more stardom on their roster. But the Diamondbacks have been struggling. I think the Padres have been scuffling a little bit here, but we know the Padres, I think, are for real. But now, with this big of an acquisition by Buster Posey, getting Rafael Devers, I can't believe we forgot to put this on our agenda, but now it is. Good job, Nate. The Giants are for real. I mean, because their offense isn't abysmally bad. Like, they got dudes, like adding Willie Adames, but he's struggled. Matt Chapman has been good, but not quite the same. But you have those two guys, though, still, and now you add Rafael Devers. And he's going to be their long-term first baseman, I think. He could play some third, I think. But he's going to be there, and he said he's cool with playing first. I think he just was upset with how Boston handled the whole situation. And we'll get to Boston. But the Giants are for real, man. And I think I might have said this in the preseason. I think you have 3 playoff teams out of that division. But now it's the Giants, not the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks, they have the offense, but Corbin Burns was their big offseason acquisition.
And he was fantastic.
And he was doing great, and now he's gone for the year. And Zach Gallen hasn't been the same. And I know that from firsthand experience. So I'm not going to get into that. But that really hurts them, and I feel like they just have kind of underperformed, the pitching specifically. And in that division, you can't be whoever the fourth man out is in that division is just going to miss the playoffs, and I think that's going to be the Diamondbacks. I think they're going to probably linger around 500. So they could get really hot with their offense, but it's about the pitching. And the Padres, the Giants, both those teams have the pitching, and now you add Rafi Devers into the mix. Those guys, those two teams are going to be challenging the Dodgers, not necessarily for the division, but, in the National League alongside the Cubs, the Mets, and the Phillies. So, very exciting stuff. Very, very exciting stuff in that division. And the Giants, good for them. They've been stuck in mediocrity for a while. Last year we were like, what's their direction? And they've never committed to rebuilding. And now you make such a splash move like that with the pitching they have. They got a contender there now. As for the Boston Red Sox, I mean, what a kind of sad state of affairs they're in. Their ownership group has not just been aggressive over the past few years for their standards anyway. You get rid of Mookie Betts for what turned out to be an awful trade, and now you get rid of Rafael Devers, which I think is also going to turn into an awful trade because, yes, Devers was a headache, but you don't trade him in the middle of a season for that kind of crappy return, right. Especially when the Red Sox are finally getting some momentum. And the AL is weak. I mean, those wild card spots are open. And you signed Alex Bregman. You signed Garrett Crochet. It just seems like there's no consistency with what they're trying to do. And I can't blame Red Sox fans for being upset. Now, they could still make up for it and use all that money that the Giants took with Rafael Devers and really invest into this team elsewhere and really turn this into a positive. But this ownership group has just not been aggressive enough. Not when you have the Yankees in your division. So, and you have the Rays who develop well and somehow are 8 games over 500. That's another interesting team. I don't know what to make of them. But they're 1.5 games back out of the division because the Yankees are struggling. I think kind of like the Dodgers, the Yankees just have too much, and they'll kind of run away with that division still. But the Rays, I didn't expect them to be where they are right now, and that's really obviously due to their pitching and a lot of their young hitters like this junior Caminero. But I do want to hear more about what you guys think. Jake Bell, you kind of already talked about this a little, but I mean, the Boston Red Sox, I mean, is there the only positive takeaway for them is that they can be more aggressive because they have more cap space now. Obviously, there's no cap. I mean, I think I've said that multiple times in this episode. There's no cap, but salary room now. But this ain't management. You can't, with Alex Cora as your manager, you can't be this mediocre and say, oh, it's on the manager. Like, I think it's a lack of aggressiveness with the ownership and the management. So
I mean, if you want, I mean, I could like detail the players that the Red Sox got in return, just so people at least know what they got. Because I feel like obviously the Giants so far have easily won that trade, considering what they traded for Devers. But I could detail some of the guys because I at least have a little bit of profile on them.
Sure, real quickly, I guess. But I mean, the only guy that's kind of like, wow, he could be a future. Because the good thing the Red Sox do have going, also, is that they have these young guys like Roman Anthony. I'm not as high on as everyone else, although he was the #1 prospect in baseball. This Marcelo Mayer, Roman Anthony, this Cedane guy, Cedon Rafael, a couple other guys that are young
Campbell.
and upcoming that are interesting. But yeah, I do want to hear a little bit. Sure. Yeah, let's break that down a little bit.
Yeah, so the guy with the most major league experience that the Red Sox got was Jordan Hicks, who I truly feel is going to be in the bullpen. Obviously, that's not the type of guy you would want in that sort of deal, but he has experience in late innings with the Cardinals. I know that he converted into a starting pitcher. With how much starting pitching that the Red Sox have, I don't think they're going to use him in that way, especially since he struggled so far.
No, he's not a starting pitcher.
No, I think that.
But he's just been very inconsistent his whole career.
Right. I think he'll stick in the bullpen. I think Kyle Harrison is someone that they're really going to try to develop. I think that's why they sent him into AAA. He is a guy that has big time strikeout potential. And while he hasn't been as consistent enough in the MLB, he's still been a decent starting pitcher in the MLB. But I think the Red Sox want to make him elite. I think they're going to do everything they can to develop him. Again, that's why I think he's in AAA now. And James Tibbs, honestly, I think was what attracted the Red Sox the most to make that deal.
Yeah, that's the only guy who's somewhat really interesting.
Yeah, like he was the 13th overall pick in last year's draft. And it's funny because the Red Sox traded their 12th overall pick, Montgomery, to the White Sox in the Crochet trade, and now they get the 13th overall pick. I think that's kind of funny. That they basically get a first round pick back from last year that they gave up. But anyway, I think Tibbs, they really feel like could be. I know he's played corner outfield, but I feel like he profiles more as a first baseman. I think they feel like he can play first base for that team long term if he continues to develop. He hasn't had the greatest start to his minor league career, but he's still someone that can have an OPS around 800 in the minors, especially because he has good on base skills. And the last pitcher they gave up, it's funny, they have another. I think you pronounce it Bayo, right? Like the Red Sox have their own Brian Bayo. Now they get Jose Bayo, but he's a young pitcher with strikeout potential that I think probably will profile more as a reliever. But it seemed like the Red Sox, I think they rushed into this trade. I think they could have gotten more, but at least
you don't do it in the middle of June.
You have to do it when teams are outbidding other teams, and especially in a season where offense, let's be real, other than guys like Aaron Judge, who's hitting at an insane rate, even though he's slumping, like most of the offensive players haven't been playing their best baseball, and a guy like him who has an on-base percentage over 400 for the first time in his career, I want to say, because he doesn't usually have a high walk rate. I think Devers would attract a lot of suitors at the deadline, despite his big-time contract, so...
Before I pass it over to Nate, I just, again, want to reiterate, yes, Rafael Devers, I mean, we know that he was giving them issues, right? But I just think the Red Sox just handled this whole situation poorly. Very, very poorly. I just don't understand why you do that in the middle of the year. I just feel like, I don't know, it just, like, to me, it's like, it was either that he was such a cancer that they had to get rid of him now, or they're just finding any excuse to dump that salary. Because he's just too good of a player to get such a weak return. I mean, obviously you get a weaker return because they take on the entire salary. So, but I mean, he's still a very good, productive hitter. So it's just one of those things that's really weird. And I put the Red Sox more in the wrong here, in my opinion.
Real quick, again, I'm so sorry, Nate. I promise I'll pass it back to you, but I do have kind of a conspiracy that I talked to my dad with. I looked it up, and I think it's interesting to look at. So the ownership for the Red Sox, they also own a soccer team. I forget who.
Liverpool.
They just signed a a guy to a lot of money. So people are having conspiracies that they signed them 2 days before they traded Devers.
Yeah.
So they're having conspiracies that because they signed this guy, they can't afford Devers anymore, so they had to deal.
It just feels too, like, out of nowhere. Just, like, too...
Yeah.
It is Luka 2.0, but I think, honestly, this is worse than the Luka deal because the Mavs are set up pretty good with AD. You get a superstar in AD. Yeah. Maybe not a superstar, but a star. And then you ended up getting the number 1 overall pick. So, and Luka, obviously we see the issues with Luka. Rafi, yeah, he's kind of had some weight issues. But like, it's comparing apples and oranges, and Rafi can't play good defense, similar to Luka in basketball, but, I feel like the Mavs, you can kind of see, based on Luka's performance in the playoffs, like you can kind of see it a little better, but this just doesn't add up right now at all. And things did work out for the Mavs with the number 1 overall pick, and you get Cooper Flagg too, so.
Yeah, so a lot to unpack there. I'm gonna start with all the Devers stuff, so. I kind of have a different look at it than you guys because obviously we'll hate on the Red Sox for this trade and everything and the timing. From what I take from it. John Henry, the owner, and what's the exec's name? He used to play in baseball.
Breslow, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
Craig
Craig
yeah,
Breslow, yeah.
Breslow.
Craig Breslow. So they were just fed up with Devers. It was more of a them issue with Devers than like a locker room thing because from what I've seen here, the players liked him and everything. They really didn't have an issue with the situation of I don't want to
No,
play
I'm not saying that.
player there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
I'm just saying like that's where it looks like the issue is, and
But
so
why now? Why now? You
they were
just
dumb
swept the Yankees.
because
Why?
I mean
Why in the middle of June?
because you just brought Roman Anthony up. You want to get rid of this before it's too late.
Roman Anthony.
Okay, so so and then on the trade side, like yeah, I mean I think it was a pretty fair trade. I know the Giants didn't give up that much, honestly, but I think with the money they were taking on, it is kind of frustrating if you're a Red Sox fan that they are operating kind of as like a higher mid-market team in recent years as opposed to the big market team that they are. But I'm not. It's not a fair trade, but it's not like a crazy that the Giants won this trade. I mean, the Giants won this trade obviously, but I think in the short term, it's an easy Giants win. But like the Kyle guy and everything, there's a chance for the Red Sox to recover. And I actually like people are saying the Red Sox are like dead. I think there's a more than 50% chance they make the playoffs still. I really do. In that American League, I think they're better than Seattle. I'm not high on Seattle at all.
I mean,
I think
you'd
Seattle,
expect them to be in the market for one of, if not the top hitters in the trade deadline, especially after giving up a
They
Yeah,
have
guy.
the
But
money to do it.
yeah,
yeah, and so
But
people
you
are
know
like,
what? They
oh, it's
might be
like
spending that on Liverpool. So I don't know.
yeah. So yeah. I just think I don't like Cleveland. I don't think Cleveland's as good. I think they're a 500 team. I think Seattle's a 500 team. You've seen, I mean, other than Cal Raleigh and Julio, I think their offense is horrendous. You see the lineups they're throwing out there, but I think Texas is going to be aggressive. I think at the deadline, but I think they still obviously need to figure a lot out. The Royals' offense stinks. I think they're going to make the playoffs. Um, I think one of Toronto or Tampa fades, so I don't think it's the end of the world here for the Red Sox. I think it was a calculated move. I think it was an impulsive owner move. Um, but at the same time, I think it was
That's not
calculated.
calculated. If it's
No, I,
impulsive,
no,
it's not
no, but
calculated.
yeah, but I think they understand that with Roman Anthony coming up with Marcelo Meyer, with Kristian Campbell, and Jaron Duran and Alex Bregman and Trevor Story. I mean, this offense is
Trevor
still excellent.
Story.
He's looking a lot better. He's coming back to. I don't want to hear that. I named six guys anyway. They were really good offensive players before Story, so they're going
Roman
to be
Anthony is going to be a bust.
okay.
That's my
I remember
big
seeing on
call.
the fan someone suggested we traded Bubba Chandler for Roman Anthony, which I think would be crazy. I wouldn't do that because I like Bubba a lot, but
Roman Anthony
it'd be
is
insane.
I'm telling you right now, this guy is not that
Well,
good.
well,
I've
heard it here
watched.
first.
I'm not impressed.
I don't know. I haven't watched him play. I just know that he's the number one prospect in baseball. So.
Well, he's heavily Italian, and I think that works in his favor significantly. And but anyway, so I think the Red Sox are going to be okay. Um, so I'm not. I still think it was maybe the
That's the
wrong
problem. They're
decision.
always going to be okay. They're never going to be. I'm out
Well,
on this organization. This is really ridiculous, in my opinion.
well, I think
I'm so
I
out
mean
on
I think their pitching's better this year. I think they're a better team actually right now after the Devers trade than they were at this time last year. I think their pitching's they've gotten a lot better. Obviously, Garrett Crochet is excellent, and he's been healthy all season. So, but as for the
How do
Giants
you got
side,
after that though?
you got Bayo, you got Tanner Houck. He has to pitch a little better.
Tanner
Um,
Houck.
yeah, he's gonna pitch better. He's been a good pitcher
Oh
in his career.
jeez.
And they'll address that a little bit too. But as for the Giants, I think it was a great move by the Giants. I think it was a nice aggressive move. And they've been really aggressive with Posey and with that ownership recently. Obviously, getting rid of Lamont Wade, who's been a good hitter for them. obviously he's not a first baseman. They've been playing him at first base because they've had a first base issue for several years now. I think Devers is going to play first. I think he'll be more okay to play first. Um, I still like with Devers this offense. I still think it could use another bat. But I think William Adames will start hitting better and everything. But I do think they are a legit contender now in the National League. Do I think they're on par with even the Mets? I don't think. I think they're still like a notch below the Mets at their best. If the Mets hit with runners in scoring position, they would be. I mean, because they're the worst team in the National League with runners in scoring position. It's actually crazy. If they did that, their offense is like seventh in the National League. It could be you know top, and they could be even better with their stellar pitching. So I think the Giants are still several teams that are better than them, but I think they'll be aggressive at the deadline, and they've already shown it with this move that they will be. So I think it's very interesting. As for the NL West, um, the Padres need to do some work at the trade deadline to shore up the bottom of their order. It has been a nightmare really in the past month
They've
for
been
them,
struggling. Yeah.
and they've really fallen. They're only 5 games over 500 at this point. They need to shore up that. I mean, it was a crazy difference. You look at the Dodgers bottom of the order. It's Tommy Edman. It's Sung Kim. It's Dalton Rushing, the top catching prospect in baseball. It's just such a stark difference. And then you got Elias Diaz, who looks washed. I mean, Elias Diaz looks really washed to me now. I'm seeing him swinging through these fastballs like way late. It's just kind of crazy. And Bogarts, obviously, you touched on that, Jake. That's really a sad thing because Bogart's one of my favorite players, and he's just really fallen off with the Padres. It's really sad to see. But
He's not the only one that's been doing that, especially when he should still technically be in the prime of his career. I mean, he's 32, 33. You wouldn't expect that much of a deep fall off if you look at these other guys. So
right. So I think they need to do something. But again, like what prospects do they have other than that catcher that looks elite? They really don't have too many. I mean, they've traded them all away in the past several years. So it'll be interesting to see what the Padres do there. And I think Dylan Cease is a free agent at the end of the season. I think there's some questions there with the Padres coming up, and obviously Arizona just really disappointing this year for them. I think we all had them as a playoff team just based on, I mean, Corbin Burns, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. You expected Rodriguez to bounce back. It just would be a really solid rotation with one of the better offenses in baseball. It's just been a nightmare season for them. And now, I think they're going to hover around 500 all season. I just don't think pitching wise, unless they go big for bullpen arms and they can hold down some of these leads late in games, it's going to be tough for them. So there's still a lot to be determined in the American League. There's a bunch of 500. The Twins, Cleveland,
Yeah.
Kansas City, Seattle, Texas, the Angels, the Red Sox. There's a bunch of 500 teams right now. It's going to be really interesting. There's going to be a lot of potential buyers at the trade deadline. Whereas in the National League, you're looking at teams like the Marlins, the Nats have lost 11 in a row, the Pirates, the Rockies. Obviously, there's some for sure sellers but really they don't have too much to offer other than maybe the Pirates if they want to trade Mitch Keller or David Bednar or something. Much in terms of value, the Rockies have Jake Bird, that they can trade. That's just the reality of being an 18-win team in the middle of late June. And the Marlins don't really have too many guys other than Sandy, who's pitching a little better recently. But it will be interesting to see how some of these teams play with the month and change we have until the trade deadline to see if anybody. Because right now you're looking at like 5 or 6 teams that are for sure sellers, and so we saw that last year where it was a seller's market. There were just a lot fewer sellers than buyers, and it will be interesting to see what teams do because I think in the American League right now too, I've been seeing some people saying that the Yankees have lost 6 in a row, but the American League, they're still the prohibitive favorite or something. I think Detroit's better than them. I think they're deeper than
I
them,
agree.
and I think the Yankees have to do some serious work at the trade deadline to try to match. I don't think it's a for sure shoe in that the Yankees are going to be the AL representative in the World Series like some people are making it out to be, especially seeing the 6-game losing streak where it's things we've seen year after year after year with this franchise, where it's if Judge struggles, the whole team collapses almost offensively. And without the home run, they are very poor. They're not good situationally. We saw uh, Volpe. I mean, he just made a critical error yesterday that gave the Angels the win. They've had defensive lapses, so they need to fix a lot of things as well. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do, how aggressive they are, especially with Cole out for the season. They have a lot of prospects. They're not S tier prospects that Yankees fans think they are when they propose these Paul Skeens trade proposals. Like, oh my gosh, it's so funny with these Paul Skeens trade proposals. When Yankees fans make them, other Yankees fans are like, "That's way too much for Skeens." It's like George
Yankees prospects
Lombard.
always get overhyped. Like Jose Tabata is the biggest example. All
Yeah,
these
it's
prospects
just
just get
like
overhyped.
George Lombard and Jason Dominguez. He's a very average player. He's been a prospect every season. I just think um, they just overhype who they have and think they're like untouchable. So it'll be interesting to see what the Yankees do. I do think they need to do a lot, and I think they need to shore up their bullpen a little bit, especially if Devin Williams can continue to struggle or Luke Weaver's out
Them
long
losing
term.
Luke Weaver was a big for however many weeks. They
Yeah,
need him back.
for sure.
Yankees in the market for a reliever potentially, and the Pirates have a couple. We'll see what
Such a
happens.
broken record. Yeah, Diamondbacks.
Santana goes back to the Yankees.
That would be insane.
There's some teams that for sure need bull. I think the Pirates do trade one of those guys. I think one of those teams, Yankees, Diamondbacks, Phillies, one of those teams offers the Pirates just a ton for a Bednar because I mean the Phillies desperately need somebody at the back end. Arizona needs multiple guys. The Yankees need somebody at the back end. So I think somebody will want to overpay. But I don't Charrington. I just don't know. I just have never seen it. It's like, oh my gosh, Charrington just cooked with his trade. A really smart organization overpaid. Yeah, I just don't. I don't know if I see that happening necessarily, but I think there's a really good chance it does happen for one of these teams that maybe is in an unfamiliar position and is maybe not as well run as other teams.
Yeah, it's funny. Like honestly, I hope no one from the Pirates gets traded from the Yankees, just because all I hear from people is that, oh, the Pirates every time they have someone good, they just trade them to the Yankees. We're a farm system to the Yankees. It's I just hate hearing that because it's kind of like not. It's
But
not. It's
it's
just not the
true.
truth. Oh,
Yeah,
honestly, I mean, to a degree, like I know that the Pirates don't spend, but at the same time they invest a lot in their homegrown guys. Like it's not like Kutch became good and then we traded him. We traded him because he was on an expiring deal. We were not competitive. It's just I just don't like hearing that. And then it's like that's kind of it. Baseball is a different sport financially than hockey and football. That's
they
beloved
need
in
they need
Pittsburgh.
to make
So
a trade with the Yankees that actually works out for the Pirates.
yeah,
But I just don't think there's a chance that happens with the venerable and well-respected Brian Cashman as GM of the New York Yankees. I don't see
Cashman
that.
owns the Pirates, bro. Owns
He
them.
owns many teams.
But listen. I'm looking
I'm
at both
listening.
the NL and AL, right? I just gotta wrap up I want to look because we talked about the Giants and the Red Sox. But like both are very, very different. The NL to me is very clear cut. Right, Dodgers are the big favorite. Obviously, it depends if their pitching's good to go, they're probably gonna be back in the World Series. But the Mets, the Phillies. So you have 6 playoff teams, right, in each league. The Mets, the Phillies. They're gonna be in what? That's gonna be the biggest. That's gonna be the most fun division battle this year between the Mets and the Phillies. Those teams are
Braves.
switching back and forth, first and second, first and second, first and second. But it's going to be the Dodgers, obviously, the Mets, the Phillies. Then to me, it's the Giants and the Padres. I know the Padres are kind of scuffling right now, but they're gonna be fine. And then you have those two, and then the Cubs are going to be the team out of the NL Central. I think the Cubs are fool's gold a little bit right now, but I still think they're too good to not win that division. But like all five of those 6 teams at least are definitely making the playoffs in the NL. Like there's no doubt about it in my mind. And 5 of those 6 teams I mentioned, I think are World Series contenders. But then after that, it's just like there's a clear drop off, and like Cincinnati, Milwaukee, Atlanta, they need to retool. I don't think they need to rebuild, but they need to retool. Whether that's a managerial change and just they need to make some moves to retool. But we could talk about them another time. But yeah, the only team in the NL that I could see like coming out of the shadows is Arizona because of their offense. But I just think compared with when they're in that because they're in that NL West, right? Like the Giants and the Padres they both have better pitching right now, and that's the difference. And both of their offenses match up now, especially the Giants with Devers. So if you put the Diamondbacks in the NL Central, like I think they're competing with the Cubs probably, but that's just not the circumstance. But the AL is completely different. You have 2 top dogs, the Yankees and the Tigers. I think the Tigers are the better team right now. But then after that, it's a lot of mediocrity. I don't know who's real there and who isn't. I mean, there's only 2 or 3 teams that are really out of it in the AL. And that's the A's, the White Sox, and, well, I'm not going to count the Orioles out yet, but they're kind of out. But they've been playing a lot better lately. I think
loss might have buried
you can kind of roll them out. What's that?
That 8-0 lead to 12-8 loss, that might have been the nail in the coffin for that. Might have like taken a lot of momentum away from them because that's a game they had to win.
So the AL is deeper, right, in terms of teams that can be competitive, but the NL is more top heavy. You know what I mean? The NL is more like there's 5-6 teams like wow, like these are really really good baseball teams. Because in the AL outside of Detroit and New York, and I have to throw Houston in there. You know, Houston doesn't get the attention they used to, but they're taking care of their business because the rest of their division is garbage. I mean, they're mediocre at least. Seattle, they don't want to take advantage of their good pitching. Their management is always good. They've admitted it outright that they're okay with being an 80 to 85 win team every year, and that's okay. But you're not gonna you're not going to get ahead of the Astros and win that division. You're just not. The Rangers have really, really disappointed me this year. Their offense on paper is so much better than it is. I just don't know what's happened with them. But yeah, I think it's the AL is going to be really, really up in the air for sure. And compared to the NL in terms of like who's making the playoffs.
Yeah, hey, I'll just say this: don't count out Atlanta Braves. You're kind of counting them out. They're looking really good right now.
And
Ronald Acuna.
In that division,
I think they can get a wild card.
They're not passing the Phillies and the Mets. I can tell you that.
They're destroying the Mets right now. I mean, they're just outclassing them in this series. I think they could. I mean, the Mets have lost 5 in a row. I don't think either team is significantly better than the Braves. I had the Braves.
Also, I agree. None of them have been dominant yet this season. The Phillies or the Mets. I don't think they have been like these dominant National League teams.
I think the Braves get back in it.
They're 15 games over 500. I mean, the Mets were 20 games over 500 until they lost 5 in a row. The Mets have been dominant.
I know,
Mets have been pretty dominant.
The Mets have a dominant pitching staff for sure. I mean, with Senga being out is going to be a bad loss, especially while they're on their losing streak.
I'll be the first to admit I was out on the Mets. I was like, I don't like this whole Soto situation. And despite Soto being very mid, the Mets are doing what they are doing. And their pitching continues. I need to charge my computer here. Their pitching continues. You see the names in their pitching staff, and it's like, but they keep overperforming. And they did that last year, and they continue to do that this year. So it's hard for me to be out on the Mets, even if they'll end up a wild card team. I did have the Phillies winning that division, I believe. Even if the Phillies win that, the Mets are still a contender, and Soto hopefully will find his stride here. But the Braves, they could make a wild card run, But I just like these NL West teams behind the Dodgers better than the Braves. I don't know. No, the
I think
Braves do have good pitching though, so we'll see.
I think we're gonna look back. I think in 2 weeks the Braves are at 500. Saying that they're 6 under right now. They've won several in a row. I think Acuna is going to carry that team. I mean, you look at the difference in this team since Acuna's been back offensively. I know they had that bad stretch with Acuna, but he's just a difference maker for them. And now Olson's starting to get it together a little bit. Their hitters are just struggling. I think you look at the rosters. I think the Braves are still better than the Giants. You look at their rotate. You match up the rotations. Um, the Braves are very comparable. You look at the offense. The Braves are much better at full capacity. So I think obviously the Braves have had just a terrible start to the season. But I think if you series with you know Braves and Giants, I think the Braves would be favored. And even I mean the Phillies have kind of struggled offensively as well recently. So I think those teams are gettable, not to win the division for
I
the
think the
Braves. I think
Giants have the momentum though with this making that big of a move, like Devers. They have the momentum, and I don't think the Braves. I just think look, the Braves had a down year last year. Everyone got hurt. Now they're down this year. It's like I shouldn't be questioning a team that's been so successful for how many years, but I just feel like at some point you got to retool. You got to not rebuild because they have too many good players, but there's got to be some changes because it's been a year and a half now where they've just been kind of off. And the Mets and the Phillies aren't going anywhere, and the Nationals, not this year, but in future years, have a lot of young talent. And I don't know. I think the Padres, even the Padres have been struggling, but I think the Padres are just they're very good too. Now, in years to come, they might start to fall off, but for this year, the Padres are the better team. I think still. I think the Braves make a run for it, but I think they probably fall short of the playoffs still. But if they sneak into a wild card spot, would it be the biggest surprise ever? No. But do I see them going far in the playoffs? I don't know. I just feel like they just haven't had the momentum that's necessary.
All right, just want to touch on a couple things too, because we went a little long there, but I want to talk about some baseball things. We haven't talked about that for a while, just some takeaways, but I just want to mention some things. So the Florida Panthers win the Stanley Cup final against the Edmonton Oilers for the second year in a row. I know Pirate Payne was not happy about that. His Oilers just did not
Terrible for
have,
the league.
well, mostly what the ratings say, but um, I think
Doesn't matter.
the injury to Zach Hyman, was a big one for the Oilers. And I think just the
Yeah.
biggest thing was their goaltending. You can't be flipping back and forth on goaltenders in the Stanley Cup final. So
That's
there
been
was
that's been the ultimate difference between these two teams for both years. Now, I think Edmonton got outplayed in the last two games. Actually, the last three games, Edmonton had that miracle comeback. They got outplayed. No doubt about it. But you need a goalie. When you're getting outplayed, you need a goalie to make plays to keep you in the game. So that way you could regroup and gain momentum, right? I mean, there were times in the Penguins during their runs where the Capitals they had all the momentum, man. They were just playing better hockey. But who came in and saved the day? Matt Murray. The goaltender in hockey is similar to the quarterback in football. You have to get the goaltender right. Stuart Skinner, during one of the playoff games, he won't take responsibility. He's a head case. I like his name. I've always rooted for the guy. But clearly, you have to have someone step up. You have to have that goaltender step up and match the other goaltender, the other elite goaltender in each series. And that's never happened. Now, I think even if Stuart Skinner was great, the Panthers may win this series. But with the amount of offensive pressure they were putting on in comparison to the Oilers those last couple games, I don't know if the goaltender would have made a difference. But clearly, the goaltenders, they had an edge. Clearly, like, the Oilers just didn't even have a chance to regain their momentum because the goaltending is never elite enough. You're not feeling like there's a wall up there in that net necessarily.
Yes.
I don't know, like, if it's like, I know these are two completely different sports, but it's almost reminiscent of us seeing like what the Warriors and Cavs used to be, kind of, which is kind of interesting because you look at Connor McDavid, you can compare him to like a LeBron James. So
Yeah, that's certainly an interesting comparison too when you think of Florida being maybe a dynasty now with just the roster they have. It's so deep. So um, Florida Panthers back-to-back Stanley Cup champs, and they got a couple free agents, but it looks like a guy like Sam Bennett, who just won the Conn Smythe, the MVP of the Stanley Cup final, he looks like he's willing to re-sign. Brad Marchand too. I mean, he was such a difference maker coming over from Boston at the trade deadline. So that will be very interesting to see how Florida retools. But and then obviously in the NBA Finals, we got the Pacers looking to force a Game 7 this evening against the Thunder. It's going to be tough here because I think the Thunder want to close the Pacers out. But for the Pacers, it just looks like they're going to lose this
They're
series.
done.
I just don't see how they can win this. I mean, OKC's the better team at the top. It's at the top too. It's not about depth in this series. It's about SGA is just a better player than Tyrese Halliburton, a better, much more consistent player than Tyrese Halliburton is. And Tyrese Halliburton clutch is excellent, but SGA is just an incredible scorer. You know, me and Payne were talking about this a little bit. He reminds me of he's kind of like a Tim Duncan point guard because he doesn't do anything that's like crazy flashy. He just gets
Yeah, but
it done.
he's a baiter though. No one likes him. He's a baiter.
Well, he's
Foul
a good
baiter.
throw. Okay.
Free throw
He's not gonna-
merchant.
everyone could be doing what he's doing, and he's the only one doing it. So
Yeah, no, his
No, he's a great player. He's just who gives a crap about him? He's annoying.
so
Sorry.
But anyway, so Tyrese Halliburton looks like he's gonna play tonight, but he's kind of hobbled. And even when he was healthy in that last game, he was a
Yeah.
joke. I mean,
He's
it was a
been
terrible
bad.
performance for him. So
Yeah.
I do think there's a
When
chance
he's not going, they're done.
Yeah, I think there's a chance the Pacers win this Game 6, force a Game 7, but I don't see them winning on the road again against the Thunder. I think the Thunder were the best team in the NBA all season. I think they're rightful. I think that Game 4, the Game 4 win for OKC really sealed them as champions because 2-2, and it's a best of 3, and the OKC gets 2 home games, and they're the better team.
That was
And as opposed to 3-1 for the Pacers, where we could win Game 6 and wrap it up in 6 games. So, and the Pacers were winning that game, and they played better in stretches in that game than they did in Game 3 when they won. So, I
The
just think,
Pacers had the noose around the neck of the Thunder. They were right there. They had that game won. You have to win that because when you're a major underdog like that, when you're not the better team, when you have the momentum, you have to seize it. And they let that game slip, and that was the series. And now Halliburton's playing like crap. He's injured. He's going to be playing on an injured leg. And Pascal Siakam, he doesn't know what the heck he's doing out there. So, I mean, he looks terrible too. So when your two stars aren't playing well and one is injured, you're done. But they had them. They had to seize that opportunity.
Yeah, Siakam's the kind of guy who you don't want him dribbling the ball very much, and he was dribbling the ball way too much in Game 5 because Halliburton was hurt, and they had different ball handlers, and he's just not a good ball handler. He turned the ball over several times. He had a good game shooting wise, and everything, and he made some plays, but he's not that number one option on any team. I don't care if it's a team as deep as the Pacers. So again, I mean, I could see the Pacers winning tonight and forcing a Game 7. If they won the championship, I would be absolutely floored. I'd be stunned because I just don't see this Thunder team. They clamped down at the end of Game 4. They were just like, "You're not scoring on us." And they didn't. The Pacers didn't score at all the last 3 minutes of that game. The Thunder just clamped down. They were down 4, and they ended up pulling away pretty easily. So, um, but that was it was a fun NBA playoffs for sure. And do you guys want to touch on? I mean, we're going pretty long. You want to touch on Shedeur Sanders driving 101 miles per hour in a 60-mile-per-hour zone? I mean,
Really quickly, I'll just say this: you're an idiot. You had momentum going. The media has been giving you a little pillow to lay on so comfortably at night. The media has been so supportive of Shedeur despite all of his issues. Whether that's, being disrespectful in draft meetings and putting up legendary everywhere in your draft room. You have a good OTAs. You do really, really well in minicamp. You do well in all of that. All this good media press. Finally, you're having some positive. So the media protects you, right, from all the bullcrap you did, right? The media protects you and tries to help your image and support you. Then you have a good OTAs, right, which kind of puts the fact that you were a 5th-round pick, all that stuff that happened in the past for a little bit. You have all the momentum. You're doing well. Maybe you're proving something to Andrew Barry and Kevin Stefanski, who are almost in tears when they end up sadness when they drafted you. And you looks like you're proving something to them, and then you do this. Like the kid's just immature. This is a typical Cleveland Browns draft pick. I really was like, I was kind of with the media. I was like, let's just give the kid a chance. Let's see what happens. I'm out. The quarterback has to be a leader. He has to be mature at an early age. Shedeur Sanders is not capable of that. 100 miles an hour on the road. I know it may seem stupid to some people, but this stuff is adding up at this point.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch base on that as well. I understand, like, how well he's been doing, how much ownership likes him, but at the same time, he's not guaranteed a spot in the NFL. I know more than likely he's going to make the team, even with what just occurred. But, a guy got drafted before you in the same draft, same position, for the same team. They acquire Kenny Pickett for a reason, even though I think he's been struggling, if I'm not mistaken, in minicamp and everything. And then you also have Joe Flacco, a veteran. Like, someone more than likely is going to get cut. I mean, they could keep 4. But at the same time, it feels like Sanders is assuming his job is safe, that he can do no wrong. I think he feels like he's going to be the starter day one. Like, I truly feel like he thinks that. And I think that, he's, feels like he can do whatever, kind of like, because, like, his entire life he's been the starter. It's like,
well,
if the owner...
If the owner demands that, Shedeur has to be on the team, Shedeur has to start at this point, it's like Dion is still somehow is able to protect his own kid, even though Dion's really not involved. But the owner loves Dion and loves the kid. So, yeah, when you have that kind of, what's the word? It starts with a P, I believe. Entitlement. Okay, it did not start with a P. I don't know what I was thinking of. But when you have that kind of entitlement, sure, yeah, let's drive 100 miles an hour on the road.
Yeah, and it is, like, to me, like, whenever he fell in the draft, I thought that was the best thing that could happen to him, right? It's like a sense of realization. Like, I know this is not as big of a scale, but if you look at the Aaron Rodgers draft, he was like, honestly, like, falling in the draft's the best thing that happened to me. Like, whenever I was, coming in the draft, I thought it was like the best thing, and now I fell, and now I'm a little bit humble now. Like, sometimes, like, stuff like that, that's the best thing that can happen. I just don't think that kind of mindset has changed with Shedeur Sanders. I still think in his mind, he's like, well, I should have been a 1st-round pick anyway, and he's kind of having that persona where that's the case. I mean, we're seeing that right now. Like, to me, like, if you're a 5th-round pick, you have to do everything perfect to deserve that you earn your playing time, especially as a quarterback, where 5th-round picks as quarterbacks, let's be honest, they don't. The likeliness of them getting playing time, at least in a significant level, is a lot less of a percent than other positions, because your quarterback, you only have one on the team. It's not like a 5th-round cornerback who has a lot more of a chance of seeing a lot of playing time due to the toughness of the position, how many guys are on the field, just the demand of everything. And to me, it just seems like he's treating this as he's the starter right away, that no matter what's going to happen, he's going to be fine. Like, to me, like, it's just, you can't have that sense of comfortness if you're a quarterback. I think that's the mistake that he's making right now. And if he struggles, I mean, it's not something that's that uncommon to see with how he's been kind of displaying himself right now.
Yes, just want to touch on that. I really don't have any thoughts on this. But real quickly, want to move also to Jaire Alexander signing with the Ravens for 1 year, 4 million with up to 6 million with 2 million incentives. I think it was clear. It seemed like based on reporting that he had higher offer opportunities to play for different teams. Maybe the Steelers are one of those teams. But he, in the end, wanted to play with Lamar, who I think they played at Louisville together. He wanted to play with Lamar Jackson, wanted to play for the Ravens. And for the Ravens, it's a nice signing to give some depth to that position. You can't rely on Alexander to play more than 7 games. He's played 7 games each in 2023 and 2024. But when he's healthy, he's a really solid corner and definitely improves their team as we look as they're the clear favorite in the AFC North going into 2025, like they have been for the last few seasons.
Yeah, no, that's a good signing. I mean, all three of us really wanted him to be a Steeler. With, you'd be willing to take that risk as at injury, like we saw the Steelers do that with Joe Hayden a few years ago, where they took a risk on an injury-prone cornerback at the time, and it ended up working out really well for them. I think Alexander could have been a good fit for the Steeler defense, who they could use any defensive back, in my opinion, that they can get, especially a guy who has that pedigree as Alexander. But for the Ravens, I mean, that's huge that they can bring him in, especially on a lesser of a deal than what they could have. I mean, he's a guy that, when healthy, is one of the better, if not one of the best cornerbacks in the league. And it just limits the kind of question marks at quarterback in the AFC North, aside from Joe Burrow, where, if you can shore up that secondary with the Ravens, I mean, again, other than Joe Burrow, who you're probably trying to plan for anyway doing this, but Aaron Rodgers and whoever the Browns start, I mean, it's going to be a lot tougher for them to throw against the Ravens. So I'm very interested to see what happens. I mean, as Steeler fans, we're going to see him twice this year, at least, depending on, health and, where the Ravens are at. But yeah.
Any thoughts, Peyton?
Yeah, so yes, this is the benefits of having a star franchise quarterback. Now, I know Jaire and Lamar played together in Louisville, but if Lamar sucked in the NFL, I don't know if Jaire would be like, yeah, I want to go play with you. Guys who are elite NFL quarterbacks, got teams who have that, who have this franchise guys, teams want to go play there. I mean, that's just typically what you see, and with a lot of these guys who are interesting free agents, who have been with other teams for a while or whatever, and they have to switch teams, and they want to get traded somewhere, right? That's where they want to go. And this was clearly a Lamar thing because Jaire took less, and Lamar was there when he signed. And this Baltimore secondary, right, for the first time in some years, they struggled in the beginning of last year and really came together at the end of last year. Because that's what good teams do. They get better as the year goes on. And so that under this new defensive coordinator, they really started to gel. And you have Kyle Hamilton back there and Marlon Humphrey. And now you add Jaire Alexander to the mix. It's going to be tough to pass on them. And I think they're tired of seeing Joe Burrow. They keep getting in these shootouts with Joe Burrow. So now you have Jaire, Marlon, and Kyle Hamilton to help stop T and Jamar Chase. And then obviously, the Steelers with DK Metcalf. You have two really good corners
Alvin
you can
Austin.
put on him at any point. So
Robert Woods.
yeah.
Gotta put some in Robert Woods.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, and also before we close, there's breaking news here. It looks like Kristian Campbell's been sent down to AAA.
Wow.
So it looks like the Red Sox, maybe they want him playing first base at Triple. I don't know what. They're kind of a mess just positionally.
He
Obviously,
offered to, right? Like, wasn't that the
yeah,
report where he offered to play first base?
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm thinking maybe they're sending him down to play first base and to. I just don't like what they're. I just don't like what they're doing at all with him, and with anybody positionally. I just don't think they've. I think we all agree they've just
They've
done
turned
a.
into a mess of a franchise.
It's
I'm
getting
sorry, they
messy.
kind of have.
It is getting
It's yeah.
messy,
It's
and
sad because that 2018 team is one of my favorite teams of all time.
oh, me
Like
too.
JD
Yeah.
Martinez, I was like I just loved how he resurged as like a failed top prospect for the Astros to a star on the Tigers, and now even more of a star with both the Diamondbacks and the Red Sox. I think that was awesome.
Yeah, no, that was one of the best teams I've seen. They were stacked, and yeah, they just positionally, Bregman's gonna play third, but Casas is hurt all the time. They might be in the market for a first baseman, honestly, at the trade deadline, along with some pitching. Um, so anyway, that'll wrap up. It is this. I just checked. It is episode 36 of We Are Family. So thank you everybody for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram, on TikTok, on X. And I don't think we're going to be doing an episode next week. It's Jake Bell's turn to go to the beach, and so I don't think he's going to be out next week and everything. So I think we're going to be on a little bit of hiatus. We touched on a lot of bases here in the an hour and 37 minutes we've been recording. So um, Jake, hope you have a great trip. Hopefully
Thank
the
you.
weather is nice. It
Appreciate
usually is down at the beach, and we'll see you everybody
Don't
next time.
gamble on the Pirates down there.
it. At the beach, I don't
At the
think I.
beach.
I thought you were going to
I think I'll be
Vegas.
gambling at the beach. No, that's a different time.
That's later, buddy.
I'm an
That's
idiot.
later.
Finish the
Okay.
Yeah,
program.
but I'm not doing any sports things there at Vegas. I'm just gonna go to places and just see the cool stuff there. So
Eat some good food.
yes,
Hang out. It'll be very nice. So again, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.